Sports betting off to the races in 2024 with this past weekend's Kentucky Derby breaking betting records. In total, nearly $120 billion in legal bets were placed in 2023, and this year is expected to surpass that total. What's next in the space? Let's ask Brian Goodman, CEO of Golden Matrix Group. Good to see you, sir. Let's start with the big bets, the Super Bowl, the aforementioned Kentucky Derby. What do those betting handles tell you about the direction of this industry?
Well, I guess it tells you a lot. The industry's on the move, and right now, even though these numbers are huge, obviously these operators, such as DraftKings, are only operating in a few states. So you can well imagine what's going to be once they expand their operations, and this industry is in its infancy in the U.S. and you can see it by the numbers, and we obviously are part of that. And yeah, not much more I can say. The numbers speak for themselves, and it's a huge opportunity for anybody that wants to invest in the space, because it's you can call it a developing market, but it's a huge market.
Short answer. Give me a sports reference here. Are we in the first inning, second inning? Where are we in the
game? We're not even in the first innings. It's wow. We were talking yesterday with some people. We're at a show here in New York. It's called SBC. It's a gaming show, and they were talking about Brazil now licensing, and we're already operating in Brazil, and we'll be given a license quite soon, because the government there has decided to regulate the market and to issue licenses. But Brazil is over 200 million people, and it is a federal license, so it's a license that covers the whole of Brazil. In America, what you have is a few states. And within some of those states, there is only sports betting. There's no casino. Now, casino is much more profitable than sports betting in terms of margins. And so, yeah, first innings, I guess, we're at the start, and you need to, I guess, keep an eye on this, but it's only going to grow, and these companies are going to flourish. And
California is one that's still not legal. What might change in some of the United States? May it go legal? And what other markets do you have your eyes on that could join the 38 that do allow it?
Well, I can't speak for what the government may or may not do, but I can tell you a couple of things that I've learned, I guess, in my years of being in the industry. First of all, it's huge tax dollars for the states, and it would be unusual, if I use the word. I don't want to use some nasty words here on the show, but it would be crazy for them not to regulate it rather than keep it in a sort of unregulated form, because I have no doubt that people within California are placing bets on sports. So why not regulate it? Make sure that it's compliant, and bring the tax dollars home rather than let this money go offshore. And I would think that that's the way this will move. I would assume that all states ultimately will find some type of regulation that they feel comfortable with, whether it's sports, casino, both, even lotteries, and then in that way they can bring home this aside from the taxes and revenues. They get to control it and to make sure that it's offered. The people who are running these organizations are doing the right thing. And I think that's important. Another thing is that in terms of bricks and mortar, physical institutions and online, there's a huge move in that direction everywhere in the world, and it's like having a retail store. There's no major retailers that don't have an online presence, like being a dinosaur. If you're a retailer and you don't have an online presence, you know it's very difficult to survive. And so ultimately, lottery, things like that, you will see them be available online. It's logical, and I'm not a betting person, so I wouldn't bet on it, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure it's going to happen.
Yeah, let me jump in there. The big players, as you mentioned, DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM's jumping, making a push, Caesars making a push, ESPN Bet via Penn Entertainment. How difficult is it to crack into this space, and do you see more jumping in the years ahead?
Well, I think I'm talking for ourselves because we don't do any business in the US, even though we're a NASDAQ company and we're highly profitable. It's very unusual to see an online company that is profitable. So if you look at on NASDAQ and you go a long way to find a gaming company that is profitable, but we highly profitable. We've always been profitable. We historically, we have excellent revenues and we generate free cash, but we've chosen to stay away from the US for the time being because it is quite competitive, and we didn't want to get embroiled in a situation where people have deep pockets and are potentially burning huge amounts of money to gain market share. And in answer to your question, I assume that some people will come along and maybe fit into the space, but at the end of the day, you'll find people that are more global players that could enter the space, but there have been some casualties already in terms of smaller players coming into America thinking that it's a huge market and they can take advantage of it. No market is easy. You need experience. You need to be able to have other operations if in fact you're going to
Right,
take on some markets.
And that's like Fanatics, who's jumping into this space. They generate a ton of cash, so they can afford that. But most of the companies, to your point, are burning cash with these huge incentives to lure new players. How long can that continue?
Well, listen, you should not underestimate the likes of DraftKings and whoever's out there burning that kind of money. They have a game plan and a strategy to gain market share and then to obviously turn the companies into profitable situations. But in saying that, casinos are a very simple process in terms of dollars and cents. You buy players at a particular price. So your acquisition cost of a player is something, and then you work out how much that player's worth in his lifetime. And if that number's negative, the problem is the more players you buy, the worse you become in the short term. And so if I'm paying $1,000 a player and he only generates $300 in his lifetime, and I continue to spend money buying those players, you can imagine what would happen. And so there are other ways to mitigate those expenses in acquiring players, buying other companies, maybe entertainment industry, buying companies that have databases and ways of acquiring players at a lower cost. But all of those things will happen. But it comes down to how much that player costs to get him into your environment and how much you can I say extract, it's a nasty word, but how much you can make off that player, because it's generally the retention of that player is very important, because the costs up front, and then you have to make sure that the player stays with you and you retain him. And in sports betting, a little bit more difficult, because those players may have multiple sportsbook accounts. They may look to see who's offering the best odds, who's whatever. So they may be playing in 3 or 4 different licensed products.
Keep us posted when you enter the U.S. We know Golden Matrix has casino games and sports gambling, the ticker symbol GMGI. Good to see you, CEO at Global Matrix Group, Brian Goodman.